All right. I think everything's working. It's hard to know sometimes at the beginning of streams here. I do all my pre-stream testing and then things don't work. So we'll see how this goes. How's it going, everyone? Been a little bit here. Going to okay, cool. That actually worked. Just getting a little tweet out about the stream. All right. How's it going, everyone? It's good to be here. I'm going to bring the stream up over here on my other window so I can see better. All right. How's it going, guys? Josh Spears is here, all 41. I'm sure there'll be more popping in as we go here. Obviously, there's no intro to this stream. We're just kind of winging it today. Mostly because I don't know if I'm going to have time to get a video up today. I am going to be spending a decent chunk of today visiting Eric in the hospital. You guys know, the co-host of the Nintendo Prime podcast. Maybe I'll be able to give a health update on him later. We'll see. I don't want to reveal anything he doesn't really want me to talk about. So I wanted to make a video at some point talking about how do I put this? The Game Awards, I suppose. I did finally get a chance to watch the entirety of the Game Awards without anything being spoiled, which, as you know, is pretty hard, especially when you have like a new console reveal happening in the Game Awards. It's pretty hard not to see that news pop up anywhere. But I mostly did it by just not visiting YouTube and not visiting Twitter. Stay away from those two mediums, and I basically didn't hear anything. I just stuck to Facebook, where I don't follow anything that's not really Nintendo related, and even then, the things I follow on Facebook that are Nintendo related, only like one post at a time pops up out of like the 500 that pop up, so it's really hard for me to get spoiled by things on Facebook too. So it's one of those situations where I successfully avoided all the spoilers, watched the entire thing as intended. Granted, it was split up a little bit. I didn't watch it for 3.5 hours in a row or whatever, because it was 3 hours long, plus you had the half-hour pre-show. And I got to say, I do think the Game Awards get better every year. I don't think a year has gone by where Jeff Keighley has not made the Game Awards better every year. You could tell he definitely listens to feedback and tries to apply it to the next go-around. There's obviously some things that haven't changed. There's things where a game will win an award on stage, and then as they go up for that award, if they won another one, it'll just be like, oh, hey, they also won this award. And it's like, okay, but that category didn't get its proper attention, because when you announce the winner of an award, you go through all the nominees, and when you say, oh, this one also won this, you didn't go through the nominees for that. So then it ends up kind of diminishing the other reward or the other award that game received. And that is something that I've been critical of Jeff Keighley since the beginning. I think how he handles handing out the awards has gotten better over the years. But it's still a little, it still feels like when you have 3.5, because the pre-show, they announced winners as well. We got the Smash Bros. Winning, the fighting game one and stuff in the pre-show. When you have, 3.5 hours, it really doesn't feel like there's a reason that every award can't get its individualized attention, even if it might get tiring to have one game keep winning multiple awards. It doesn't really matter because the point of the awards isn't just for the winners. It's about who was nominated, because it highlights the video game industry and the wide variety of content out there. So even if one game, say, wins 3 or 4 awards, each one of those awards, I feel like, should get its at least announced, who the nominees were before announcing the winner. So that is something that I've always been critical of, and I hope gets better at some point. I mean, like I said, you got 3.5 hours. You could find a way to do it. Obviously, I've never been one to be upset about the commercials. I've never been upset about the built-in ads. This is a very, very expensive show to put on. And, obviously we know the very first show was completely out of Jeff Keighley's pocket. That's probably not the case anymore. He probably has investors. and obviously all the ad revenue coming in. So I do think that commercializing it is just to be expected. Every awards show on the planet has commercials. That doesn't really bother me. And what's kind of nice about when Jeff Keighley is kind of in control of what gets commercialized, you end up with a lot of video game commercials. And I think that's very fitting for a video game award ceremony that, the companies that are there are buying ad spaces during the awards. I know some people could view that as, like they used to with IGN, as, that makes them biased because, they're buying ads for these games that are also on the website for news and for reviews. For the awards, Jeff Keighley's done a good job separating who votes on the winners of the awards versus the advertising arm. And I don't think there seems to be much controversy there beyond just some people wishing there were less ads. But it is what it is. He's improved it every year. The musical performances are what they are. Every major award show basically has musical performances. I like that he gets video game music involved. Obviously, there was some mainstream music as well. I personally could do without some of the mainstream stuff, but here's the thing: a lot of this mainstream music is in video games too. So there's like a crossover of mediums there. So I don't think that it's necessarily out of place, and I think he's kept the musical performances much more under control. There was times when it felt like it took up like a third of the show, and that's not the case anymore. So I'm glad that he's kind of seems to be finding a better balance between the awards, the reveals, and obviously the musical performances. So I just wanted to kind of get that out of the way. Is talking about the music, talking about the awards. Those to me those are the things that celebrate gaming from the past year, because you're getting mostly music from games that have came out in the past year, and you're getting awards for games that came out in the past year, or past year plus December, because they don't count any games that released this December. They count the games from the prior December. That's why Smash could win an award. So I think that is the most important part. It might not be the part that excites people the most. I understand everyone's excited about new trailers and new reveals for things, but I will admit that I personally care about the actual awards, and maybe I don't know how many people care about it, but I think the awards themselves are important, even if you don't care, like, who they choose for Game of the Year or whatever, because other websites and other mediums, other YouTubers are going to have their own lists, and maybe you agree with those opinions more. I think the winners matter less. I think the importance of the awards themselves matter more, because it legitimizes video games as not just being this gamers club thing where video games are basically the biggest, most popular, biggest money driver entertainment medium in the entire world. And it's not treated with respect by the mainstream media. It's not treated with respect by anyone that's outside of that world. Whereas people who don't really like movies can respect, movie rewards and respect that movies exist, and they can respect TV shows. They can respect music awards. So now we got to start building up respect for game awards. Now, game awards are always going to be a little different. It's always going to feel a little bit edgier at times, because video games find that fine balance between being really, really edgy and inappropriate to family-friendly, safe stuff like Ring Fit Adventure, or Luigi's Mansion 3, which won best family game. It's one of those situations where I think there's a fine balance, and I think Jeff Keighley does a pretty good job. I mean, heck, we had the one guy was a couple years ago talking about basically dropping F-bombs, or it was awesome. One of my favorite moments at the Game Awards. So there wasn't quite a moment like that, but this year, but that's okay. I think the awards were more concise. Obviously, I know some people are kind of iffy on the presenters at times. Reggie being a presenter for an award obviously made sense, because he's considered to be a legend in the industry, even though he was just an executive and didn't actually make games. Obviously, we know how well he was beloved as Nintendo fans. So having him being a presenter made sense. But I think it's still important for, like Vin Diesel was there and stuff like that. I think it's important for him to rope in, the Steph Currys and the Vin Diesels of the world, because it's bringing more legitimacy again to the importance of the video game awards. At movie awards and TV shows, you'll see, people from unrelated fields appear on stage there. as entertainers from different fields like music and stuff and present awards, or comedians that might have nothing to do with a movie or a TV show, and they'll be out there presenting an award, because it's about crossing the barriers of entertainment and bringing people together to celebrate a medium. And I think legitimately there are movie stars and basketball players and all that. Oh, Steph Curry obviously mentioned NBA 2K specifically, but that play video games. And it's important to realize that these people probably wouldn't be here if they didn't have even a slight interest in video games, or their children didn't. So I think it's important to legitimize, again, the importance of video games and the mainstream acceptance of it. And the more and more of the more mainstream TV, music, sports kind of guys you can get involved in presenting the awards and pumping up video games, I think a future exists. I don't know when this future is going to happen, but I think 10, 20 years from now, a future does exist where video games will be fully accepted and maybe even, believe it or not, partially understood by mass media, whatever mass media looks like at that point, because we have no idea what it's going to look like 10 or 20 years from now. But I really liked the Game Awards, and I think it's become a tighter, improved show just from the award and the music perspective. Again, there's always ways it can get better. I'm always going to be critical of the how certain categories of the awards are handled. How, like, there's a pre-show that hands out awards before the actual awards show. At this point, the pre-show is just part of the show. But I thought the pre-show was the best pre-show they've had. I thought it was really concise. I thought it was excellent. Obviously, we had some nice world premieres in it. But yeah, I guess that's where we can get into the world premieres. Obviously, some people came after me after the show, and so I did have one thing kind of spoiled for me, that Nintendo themselves didn't really do anything at the awards in terms of presenting for basically the first year ever. Nintendo themselves didn't really unveil anything, so there was no Bayonetta 3, there was no Metroid Prime, there was no Zelda, Breath of the Wild 2 we know is in the works. There was nothing. Nintendo themselves didn't really bring anything to the show, but that doesn't mean there weren't some major reveals. Obviously we had No More Heroes 3, which is in its own controversy because some effect they used from a pack they bought was stolen. Not their fault, it's the people who sold the pack. Anyways, that's a whole controversy that is already being resolved with that game, and I know some people are excited for No More Heroes 3. It's excellent. At least the first two were excellent. Hopefully the third is. And obviously we had Travis Strikes Again as well in between. But obviously Bravely Default 2 was the biggest announcement for Switch at the show. Bravely Default is amazing. The team that made Bravely Default went on to make Octopath Traveler. Obviously, Octopath Traveler, like I said, I don't have the box sitting by me right now. One of my favorite games on Switch, probably in my top 10 Switch games. I know it's multi-platform now. I don't really care if games are multi-platform. That doesn't bother me. More people play the games, enjoy them. I don't believe that games need to stay exclusive forever or even need to be exclusive. I didn't think Octopath Traveler needed to be exclusive. But I really enjoyed Octopath Traveler, and this team is the team that made that and made Bravely Default, and now they're making Bravely Default 2. The only weird thing I think about Bravely Default 2, because nothing in the trailer looked, it didn't blow my mind, but it also looked fine. It looked like Bravely Default. It looked like HD Bravely Default is what it looked like to me, which is perfectly fine. It's fine for the game to know what it is, own it, and just make a sequel. But what I think is weird, because it's actually the third game. They call it Bravely Default 2, but what about Bravely Default the second? Isn't that a weird, we have Bravely Default the second, and now Bravely Default 2. I don't know about that. Those naming conventions sound really similar. Are they just trying to erase that Bravely Default the second happened? Because it wasn't as successful as the first one, so then they're like, oh, we had Bravely Default, now we got Bravely Default 2. Forget that second one. It wasn't as successful, so let's not talk about it. I don't know. It's obviously a very interesting way to look at it. And there were other games that were revealed. I'm not going to get into every game that was revealed that might be coming to Switch or is going to other platforms. Because I think, obviously, coming out of the show, beyond the awards and the music, the biggest thing being talked about is obviously what Xbox did. Nobody saw this coming. Jeff Keighley did an excellent job hyping up right before it happened. Obviously, we saw the next generation Xbox. We saw it announced. Microsoft's given a bevy of information since its announcement. We're still not getting exact specs on it. We're getting some rumored specs that are out there, which are probably pretty accurate based on where they're coming from, Windows Central and other places that are fairly accurate in their leaks. But, it was very interesting to see a console, a next-generation console. Because here's the thing. I know it's not Nintendo related, but console reveals and the lead up to a new console being launched don't happen all the time, right? I mean, the last time it was happening was back in 2013. That was 6 years ago. And over 6 years ago, really, when that started. And obviously, we had the Wii U happening, Wii U was originally announced in 2011. So it's been a while. We don't get this kind of stuff very often. And we just had Switch, obviously, from the end of 2016 into 2017, which was a very short hype period before that came out. So now we have, Xbox hype starting now, PlayStation 5 likely starting either, probably early in January at some point. And we're going to talk about that at this channel because it's part of the industry, and it's part of the industry I'm interested in. I'm not going to obviously dedicate a ton of videos to it, but don't be surprised if things come up in a Prime News episode on a Sunday for one topic, or don't be surprised if I do make a dedicated video or a live stream about it, because I'm very interested in just technology in general and video game technology specifically. So I think it is cool that that Microsoft chose the Game Awards to be the first to out the gate to unveil their next gen platform. As for what I think about it, my first reaction was that it's an HTC PC. Basically, that it's a living room PC. Because when you see a small box like this, that's basically what a living room PC is. If you guys know what, like the Corsair One, if you guys have ever heard of that as a pre-built PC, it's very similar to that in design. But I kind of like the design itself because Microsoft is a PC company. And what was so great about the OG Xbox is it was off-the-shelf PC parts in basically a flat PC case, which flat PC cases hadn't been around, in ages. The ones that we used to set our giant computer monitors on top. It kind of felt like that with the OG Xbox. They got away from that with the Xbox 360, to a more console-like design. And then with the Xbox One, they kind of went back to that design again, but they also were going back to x86 architecture with the Xbox One, which again is PC architecture. So kind of made sense that they would just release a box that is pretty boring and looks like a PC. Whereas PlayStation made the move to x86 as well, but they still kept the more console-like design, sleekness to the design of the actual system. And that maybe that had something to do with the appeal of the platforms, along with a lot of different things that ended up happening where PlayStation 4 was the dominant force between those two companies. But I like the design. One, it's bold, it's different. We haven't seen a home console literally just basically take a PC case chassis and make it a system. I know I mentioned the Xbox One and the OG Xbox were similar to that, but there weren't really PCs around with those kind of style of cases anymore. Whereas what they're doing with Xbox Series X, which we'll get into the name in a little bit, is it's very much like you can find PCs and PC cases very much like that one on the market. But I'm okay with it. It doesn't bother me on the whole because at this point, the only thing that matters to me with the console itself is basically what differentiates it from a PC. So obviously, I've always been one that cares about, the convenience of home consoles. I have a gaming capable PC. I play games on it, but I care about the convenience of Switch and PlayStation and Xbox over a PC. The convenience used to be just stick a game in and play, stick your disc in, stick your cartridge in, and just play. And Switch still very much has that. But we know PlayStation and Xbox have been requiring installs for quite some time, and installs are going to be a thing again, and that's always been a PC gaming thing is, you got to install the game. It's going to be a thing again this generation. So then what differentiates, say, an Xbox One from a PC today is more so the interface and how you interface with it, combined with the fact that one thing a home console has always had an advantage over a PC is that it has set specs. So the console is this. That's all it is. It's just this one thing. Or in the case of Xbox, there's going to be a one that's a less powerful version. So there'll be these two things. But they're set specs. Whereas on a PC, when you make games for a PC, you got to decide what's the lowest end you want to support. What's the lowest, the least fast, the least amount of core processor you want to support, the least amount of RAM, the lowest end GPU you want to support, and then hey, we also have the super high-end, multiple $1,000 stuff. And there are a billion things in between and almost an infinite amount of configurations that the end user could have. And you have to take all of that in consideration when you're making a game for PC. So when making a game for PC is easy on the whole in comparison to making it for consoles, if you want to push things, it's a little bit more difficult because you have too many variables to consider at times. This is why there isn't really any PC game that needs you to have more than 8 gigabytes of RAM in your computer, unless you're also trying to play like Red Dead Redemption 2 on your PC while having 50 Chrome tabs open like I have right now, because Chrome infamously eats up a lot of RAM. There's really not a single game that takes advantage of more than 8 because they have to take in consideration such a wide variety and variance in hardware. With a home console, you have set in stone specs and speeds and RAM and SSD and whatever they're using, right? They have set in stone everything. And this makes games able to push that hardware more specifically and target it better than they can on PC, which sometimes leads to home console games looking better than they can be on PC, even on ultra 4K, 8K, whatever you want to do, 120 FPS, whatever you're doing on PC. Sometimes there are certain home console games that just look better. And what's interesting in this case with the Xbox Series X is it seems to be bringing the specs along with that convenience. Now, we don't have all of the exact details. Microsoft themselves has basically confirmed that the GPU performance, is going to be, it's going to have, real-time ray tracing, which was kind of rumored a while ago, but it's also going to have 12 teraflops of performance. To kind of put that in perspective, to build a comparable gaming PC that has 12 teraflops of performance, from a GPU perspective, along with a comparable CPU that's not going to bottleneck it, you're looking at spending like $1,000, something like that, $1,200, and then that'll get you 4K gaming. That'll get you 4K 60 FPS gaming. That's pretty crazy when you think about how expensive that is to do on the PC side. And it's a little bit cheaper with the Ryzen end, but then you have the Gen 4 SSDs, which these seem to be using Gen 4 SSDs, but we'll see. It's just very interesting to see that what they're touting is something that isn't actually affordable for most consumers on the PC end. A lot of people are building budget $500, $600 PCs that are really good at 1080p gaming at like 200 FPS, maybe some 1440. You're not talking 12 teraflops of performance. So it's going to be interesting. Now, there's a lot more that matters than just the teraflops, of course. That's just like a number that gamers like to tout. But I do think that I'm okay with the way that the system is being spec'd out, the way that it looks, and the convenience factor of consoles, I think, is very much still there, even though I think the Switch right now is the most convenient console and the biggest differentiator from PC. I think the Xbox Series X can still, and the PlayStation 5 for that matter, can still differentiate enough from PCs to add some convenience, especially right now. One convenience might just simply be affordability. At 12 teraflops of performance, if they got this thing at $499 or $399 at launch, it's literally the most affordable 4K gaming machine on the planet. Period. Like that, it legitimately as a PC gamer, that's a killer deal for that amount of performance. So it's going to be interesting to see what the pricing structure is. Now they start going to 600, 700 or something like that. That's going to be, and some people are worried about that because if there's going to be a lower end, Xbox, Series S or whatever they decide to call it, then is that because the higher end one's going to be priced way out of people's pocketbooks? Is that why they're offering a phone style payment plan? There's a lot to consider when talking about what Microsoft might be doing here. But again, we don't know. There's a lot of unknown variables. Again, we don't know the exact specs. Spec-wise, the rumored specs, anyways, are not too crazy out there. There's going to be 16 gigabytes of RAM, supposedly 13 gigabytes usable for games, and people might be like, why do you need 3 gigs for the OS? It's not just for the OS, it's for features that are baked in. As an example, you'll be able to suspend multiple games at once. So you could be playing, Halo Infinite or whatever, suspend that, launch, Call of Duty, suspend that, and then instantly go back into either game. That is a feature that's going to need a decent amount of RAM to hold that suspended play session. You can do that on PC, by the way. You can launch multiple games and then Alt-Tab one down and play one game and Alt-Tab it back. And your performance when you're Alt-Tabbed, you get most of your performance back from the game you were playing when you are Alt-Tabbed out. But you don't get all of it back. You do need some RAM and a little bit of stuff set aside for that. So they likely have that 3 gig set aside more so for their multiple game suspension feature, which it's convenient. It's nice. It is a nice PC feature to come over. Not that a lot of PC users are playing multiple games at once and going back and forth, even though you can with 2 screens and everything. But I do think it's a neat feature that, hey, especially if you're flipping between games with a friend or whatever, or a family member, it's going to be nice, or brother and sister. So that's supposedly what's happening. We don't know any of the speeds of the RAM. We don't know the timings or any of that stuff. So that's something that will maybe get revealed at a later date. The SSD technology, there's rumors out there about the speeds only being 2 gigabytes, which actually isn't that impressive if that's the case. But again, we don't know. Just rumored specs. We have no idea. They're definitely not touting it as much as PlayStation was when they did their initial tech showing of their SSD for PlayStation 5. But we'll see. We have no idea. That could be a difference between the two systems. They didn't talk much about the GPU beyond teraflops in the rumors, and that it'll have real-time ray tracing, be a Navi GPU, which, by the way, ray tracing isn't even a thing on the highest end of AMD GPUs available to consumers, so I'm very interested to see what tech AMD has been keeping behind closed doors, apparently, for these systems that their current GPUs can't do. The 5700 XT can't do it. So I'm very curious what's going on with that technology. And then that's basically, there's apparently 8 cores on the CPU running at 3.6 gigahertz, which is 400 megahertz faster than the Xbox One X. I don't know what that means. I don't know. To me, I hear 3.6 gigahertz, a Gen 3 Ryzen CPU, and I think that sounds a little low to me because almost all Gen 3 Ryzen GPUs, including the $9,900 or the $99 3200G or whatever, runs at a stock that's faster than that and isn't using very much power, so it doesn't need much heat dissipation. So I'm a little confused if 3.6 gigahertz is the default. To me, that's where the bottleneck exists potentially, because almost all CPUs today start at 3.7, 3.8, and turbo boost above 4 easily, and that includes the Ryzen ones. So I don't know. That to me sounds a little strange, especially since it's in a more traditional small form PC case. That would be a weird limitation. Maybe it's something they're just going to start with 3.6 because they're stable at that, and maybe they'll increase it over time. I don't know. Or maybe they're leaving more headroom for future versions of the Xbox Series X that could be faster, like an Xbox One X version of the Xbox Series X, where it's faster, and that's one place they can bump it up is CPU speeds. So I don't know. Maybe they're just leaving themselves some wiggle room for the future. And then obviously we'll get to the name in a second, but we have to talk about the only game really showing off for it, Hellblade. Hellblade Senua's Sacrifice, or Hellblade 2, I guess is what it's called. That's Hellblade Senua's Sacrifice, the first one. We have to be a little careful. It looks fantastic. If you just looked at the Vista shots alone, you could be hard pressed to differentiate between a video game and real life with some of those Vista shots. They're very, I don't want to say uncanny valley because some people that makes people uncomfortable. I'm not uncomfortable. I think it's gorgeous. Obviously, you could still tell the difference between like a real face and her face in the thing, but it's still a really good looking face. But we have to be careful when we get hyped for Hellblade 2 and the way it looks and the hyper realism, because it's just in-engine footage. So yes, the game can look that good, but maybe only in a cutscene. We don't know the difference between their in-engine footage and actual gameplay footage. There is a difference between what the engine can do and run on the system in a cutscene pre-rendered environment versus what it can do in real time. So I don't think the final game is going to quite look as good as that reveal trailer. And that's a big thing to know. They even said it's in-engine. So it is what is possible, but maybe not directly from a gameplay perspective. We got to be careful with that. But it's still going to look really, really good. I mean, it's still the best looking game in that art direction that we've seen to date. And this early in the generation, it's only going to get better. We know when PlayStation 5 comes out, if there's a Last of Us Part 3 or something like that, it's going to blow. It'll come later in the generation, and it's going to blow people's minds, just like The Last of Us did on PlayStation 4, which PlayStation 3. The PlayStation 3 version of The Last of Us, if you go back and watch videos of it, still looks good by today's standards. That's how impressive that game was. So it'll be interesting to see how the hardware's pushed later in the gen. Now, setting that aside, Xbox Series X. The name, obviously, it's not as bad as Wii U. But I don't know if it differentiates itself enough from Xbox One X. I think the look of it is so bold. I think the bold look of the platform is what they're relying on to be when you go to a Walmart, that's not an Xbox One. Like, I think that's what the look is so bold. Well, this is not an Xbox One. You're not buying an Xbox One. But I do think Microsoft has an interesting strategy where they didn't want to let go of the X name because the Xbox One X has been very well received. It is one of their best-selling platforms of all of the Xbox One lines. It is the one that is least criticized. It is the one that put Xbox back on top in terms of having the most powerful home console on the market. And it's the one that Phil Spencer launched himself and built the reputation of Microsoft moving forward with the Xbox brand on top of. He built it on top of the Xbox One X. They bought all the studios after they released the Xbox One X. Like, everything has been basically built around having the most powerful system out there. And the Xbox One X brand has been their brand for the most powerful platform out there. So I think the idea of calling it Xbox Series X is to let you know, well, it's not Xbox One. And they don't just want to call it Xbox X because people might get confused with an Xbox One X. So they felt like they needed a name in between. So they went with Series X. And I think that's just a future-proofing for them of how they're going to approach their naming conventions moving forward. So you're going to have the Xbox Series X, which is going to be, this is our ultra-powerful line. So, Series X, whatever moniker they want to put after it to make a more powerful system. And then you're going to probably see the Xbox One S line continue as the Xbox Series S. And I think that's what Lockhart's going to be, their cheaper system. And you're just going to see those lines kind of continue because those are the two lines that Phil Spencer launched. Remember, Phil Spencer was not the guy in charge when the Xbox One was named, nor when the Xbox One was launched. He was not in charge. So when he became in charge, that's when the Xbox One S and the Xbox One X came out. He's responsible for those two system launches. So this being his first new generation, I think he wants to build off of what he's already built. Whether or not it ends up working, I have no idea. I think name matters. I think PlayStation 5 is obviously a much more clear and concise name. I think Nintendo Switch is much more clear and concise name for what the Switch is. But Microsoft, you got to remember that they kind of lost this generation. I know Wii U is the real loser of the gen, but Microsoft didn't exactly perform well. I mean, they're performing numbers they did with the OG Xbox. Thank you, the Eighth Arc. $5 Australian super chat, breaking the non super chat. I don't think it's been a super chat or donation in a while, so thank you so much for that. But yeah, I just feel like Microsoft knows they lost this gen, and they're less worried about what happened this gen. They're worried about the positivity they gained towards the end of it, and they want to build off of it with the name. So I don't know what I would have called it. I know some people joked about Xbox 2 or just keeping the Scarlet name, but I think that I understand what Microsoft's doing. I understand their strategy with the Series X and likely the Series S. And I think in general, consumers will get used to it. You know, we've gotten used to, iPhone S, whatever, 11, 11S. And I know they kind of got away from that naming convention now because that's just what Apple does. But I think it'll be okay. Microsoft is using a more PC-oriented naming convention. And I guess it makes sense because they're a PC company. Nope, it's not. It's factually not as good as PlayStation 5 and Switch, but Microsoft has to do something different, and this is what they chose to do. I think if Phil Spencer was in charge before Xbox One was named and released, not only would have it had a better launch and not had Kinect bundled in and all that stuff, I don't think he would have allowed the name Xbox One to go through because it really made no sense after you already had the original Xbox. So I don't know. I'm okay with it for now. I'm going to reserve judgment on the system and the console till I go hands-on with it. I assume at E3 next year I'll be able to actually go hands-on with it. Maybe. I say maybe because the lines are going to be absolutely insane. I assume Sony will be back at E3 as well because they're going to want to hype up as much as they can PlayStation 5. Again, the lines to even try out a PlayStation 5, let alone the next Xbox, are going to be insane. I'm hoping they allow appointments so we can maybe schedule an appointment. Well, we'll see. We probably won't have media credentials again. My channel didn't really grow this year, so I definitely don't expect to get media credentials. Who knows? Maybe someone could slip me in as media, but yeah, I expect to have really, really long lines to even try it out. So it'll be interesting because I got to get through all Nintendo stuff first before I can focus on the other competitors. I look like a pimp. Pimp daddy. This is actually a. I don't know if I can really show you guys. Isn't there a thing in the front? I don't remember. This is a Legend of Zelda robe. You can't even buy this anymore. I'll show you guys the back. See, it's a Legend of Zelda bathrobe. But yeah, you literally cannot buy this anymore. It's like a $90 robe. I got it years ago. That's why you also see it like kind of disappearing in the green screen a little because it is green. But anyways, I'm gonna see what some of you guys had to say about the Game Awards and the Xbox Series X, and respond to some of that. Otherwise, you guys can start asking questions in the chat if you want at Nintendo Prime in the chat. I'm gonna keep this going for probably a half hour or so, because I gotta go visit Eric as soon as the visitation hours open up, which is in an hour, I believe. Sorry, just responding to the old lady. Let's see what you guys have to say. I'll let you know, Nate, your Q&A shows up a few minutes earlier on Discord than it does on your YouTube page. Yes, I'm aware of that. Actually, YouTube is supposed to be sending out, if I schedule a stream, even if I only schedule it like a half hour ahead of time, YouTube is now supposed to send out notifications for the stream before it starts, which is supposedly supposed to make viewership higher at the start. That didn't happen this time because I just went straight from not being live to live. But there are supposed to be notifications sent out. Basically, as soon as I make the stream and I hit go live on OBS, and then there's a whole new backend on YouTube. As soon as my video feed pops up there, it's supposed to send out notifications. And then whenever I hit go live on their backend, then we're live. So it's actually good that YouTube did that. I don't know how well it works because I haven't tested it. I haven't been streaming enough to test it, but it'll be nice. It'll be nice if I don't have to do like a 10-minute music play at the beginning to allow people to show up. If the notifications can just go out ahead of time and people are already waiting, that would be really nice. So I hope that that's the thing that continues. Game Awards, they did dirty this year. What do you mean, Josh Spears? I just watched individual announcement videos. The awards, part of my opinion, is just like any other award night, music or movie, whatever. Still 30-ish announcements is great. Yep. Let's go Vin Diesel here. Who wins what? No one cares. I don't want to say nobody cares. Like Sekiro winning game of the year. I don't think there's like people who don't care about that. I think there are people. I care about the awards. I think it's more important in terms of obviously the recognition of video games as a medium, but I do think that not everyone has to care about who won at the Game Awards. That's fine. I care, but you don't have to. It's okay. Having Mario as the main thing at the Japan Olympics is also, like Mario being one of the headliners for the Olympics in Japan is obviously really good for video games as well. PlayStation sucks, says Isaiah Robinson. Obviously, I'm not going to bite on console wars. Console wars are stupid. Everyone has their preferred platforms and their preferred games, and they're not wrong for having it. So, nothing wrong with PlayStation. Bravely Chronicles. I'm not gonna buy that trash can. I'll probably end up with an Xbox Series X. We'll see. If in my world, I would have an Xbox Series S and an Xbox Series X. I'd also have a whatever PlayStation 5 does. If it's just one system, then I'll have a PlayStation 5 plus an OG Switch plus the revision Switch plus the Switch Pro if it comes out and a Switch. In my world, I want all the platforms. So, is that world going to happen in 2020? Who knows? We've had a pretty crappy 2019 here at Nintendo Prime. At least I've had a pretty crappy 2019. Maybe you guys haven't. So who knows? Maybe 2020 is the year of the comeback and things turn around and things blow up. I have a new channel kind of launching. Well, not kind of. It is launching, but it's not necessarily a video game channel. I also have my Nathaniel Rumpel Janc channel that I think I'm going to revive a little bit to talk about sports. And I don't know. Do I evolve Nintendo Prime into talking more than the Nintendo video game stuff? I don't know. Probably not. That's a lot of pressure to put on myself to also start covering next gen. Who knows? We'll see what happens. I've debated on that many times over the years, and still, we're just Nintendo, so we'll see what's up. Even though we just spent the majority of this stream talking about Xbox. Let me see here. It's already memed. The Xbox sad. The Xbox sex console. Yeah, obviously. The Hellblade 2 demo was impressive, but once we see the real game, that's the we got to see a gameplay trailer. We've seen in-engine from Nintendo and Sony and Microsoft before. We got to see the actual game. I'm sure the actual game's still going to be impressive. We always got to be careful about like, oh, now I expect the game to look that photorealistic. It might not quite be like that. Plus, we don't know FPS performance and if they were running that game at 4K or if they were running it at 1080p. We don't really know. So, also, Series X leans itself being the top-end model, as in there might be another lower-end Series Y. Yeah, there's going to be a lower-end series. That's been rumored and talked about for a while. It's codenamed Lockhart. That'll obviously be unveiled at a later date. They're going to want to focus on this is our big, more powerful box that they hope is more powerful than what PlayStation 5 is. Then they'll come in with the budget model and be like, yeah, look, $499, $599, sounds expensive, but hey, we got a $200 system here for you that will also play all these next-gen games, blah, 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 blah. Another feather in Microsoft's cap, and this Sony and Nintendo need to pay attention to this. Please, Sony and Nintendo, Japanese companies, please pay attention to what Microsoft is doing. Day one, Xbox Series X can play all Xbox One games. You could bring over your entire digital library, or you could just grab the disc, put it in there, install, and play. Full, backwards compatibility, not a separate mode, not anything crazy. Literally just plays all your Xbox One games. Don't have to rebuy them. Don't have to buy a special Xbox One X version. Sure, there might be definitive 4K versions they release for $60 a pop, because that's going to be a thing that's going to happen. That happens every generation, but it doesn't matter. If you already own the games, you don't need to worry about it. All of them will play on the Xbox One, digital or otherwise. or Xbox Series X. Like, that is amazing and needs to be a thing with PlayStation 5 and the next Switch or whatever. Nintendo and Sony, please follow Microsoft's lead on this. It is so tiring having to segregate our collections of games and not be able to play them on the next system. Like, oh man, gotta hold on to, this. And I realize Nintendo did it a little bit with the handheld line, 3DS, DS, all that stuff, but it hasn't always been that way. And there's always been like, oh, you go from Game Boy to Game Boy Advance. Okay, it's backwards compatible. Oh, the DS. Okay, DS can play Game Boy Advance, but can't do Game Boy game. Like, no, full backwards compatibility. If you're using the same architecture, full backwards compatibility, please. I mean, it's going to be 2020 here. I don't think that's too big of an ask when pretty much every other electronic in our device has full backwards compatibility. All right. Let me see here. Let's see what some other people had to say here before we get to the questions. Calling this generation of Xbox consoles Xbox Series really makes it like they may be the last generation of Xbox. They're looking into game streaming. Well, they are doing game streaming. We know that. We don't know when it's launching, but they are going to do that. I don't know that this means it's going to be their last. I think it's possible that it could be a never-ending series. Remember how Nintendo talked about Switch being a family of systems? Maybe think about the next gen of Xbox being that, where there isn't really this difference between like this is a new generation anymore. It could just be continual upgrades like PC does. We don't talk about PC hardware in terms of gens, even though there are gens of PC hardware. We don't talk about it like that typically. So, yeah, the GTX, 570 is a different generation from the 1060, and that's a different generation from the 2070. Blah, blah, blah. Like, they're all different generations technically, but it's not talked about like that as commonly. So I think that's what's going to happen here, where it's just going to be Xbox Series X, and then the Series X 1, 2, 3, 4, or the Series X 2000, or whatever convention they go for off of that. I think that they've kind of set themselves up to just infinitely release systems for as long as they want to under that moniker. So I guess you could argue this might be their last launch of a traditional new generation. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. I like the robe. It's the morning. I'm a little chilly. I technically don't have pants on right now. Got to stay cool. All right. It's sparking on the green screen. Make it look even cooler. Yeah, so it's part of the outside rim of the chair that's not green. It's just weird lighting. But yeah, it does look me a little fancy over here. Got my sparkle on. All right, first question from Sebastian Cross says, do you still have your Xbox One X? No. When I had all my health issues and stuff way back when, I don't want to dive too deep into it. I had to sell a bunch of stuff to pay bills and all that because I wasn't working. Wasn't working any job. Wasn't doing YouTube. Wasn't doing my other job that I no longer have, which is roofing. I wasn't doing anything. So I had to sell a lot of stuff. I no longer have the GPU that I had on my computer. That got sold in that whole mess. I don't have my Switch, a working Switch anyways. I got the Switch a fan sent me that's broken, that I don't know if I'm going to be able to get the video out to work. So it might just become my own personal Switch Lite. Yeah. I don't have the Xbox One X. I don't have like any video game platforms right now but my PC. So even my PC, the GPU that's in it is not a gaming GPU, and I really can't game right now. Kind of suck. Well, I mean, I can do handheld Switch once I get some new Joy-Cons. So, but yeah, my goal right now is to buy a brand new Switch sometime in January, and then go for there. But I probably won't pick up an Xbox One X or a PlayStation 4. I'll just wait for the new gen. Maybe once pre-orders go up, I'm going to pre-order, and then I'm going to try to pay the pre-order off over time as kind of a layaway kind of thing, and then hopefully have all those systems paid off by launch. Clayton Miller, how are you doing health-wise? Pretty good. Not exactly on the same weight loss path I was, say, like a month ago, but holidays, when my daughter's had her birthday. I'm not like blowing up in weight or anything. I'm fine. And it's winter, which 5-mile walks in negative 25-degree weather, not exactly suggested. And I don't have a treadmill in the house, but and I don't have a gym membership, so it's okay. But I'm getting at it whenever I can. I'm paying a lot more attention to what I eat, what I drink. I barely ever have fast food anymore. I mean, it's pretty rare. Maybe once a month. I used to have it every day. So, I'm doing pretty good. Things are going well. My blood pressure is not back to where it needs to be. I'm still on medication for it, but I'm doing good. So, hopefully by next summer, knock on wood, I'll be under 200 and much closer to my target weight of 145, 150. So, let's see here. My thoughts on the Game Awards. AOL Internet Startup Sound. Jeez. Koopa Slayer said, I knew you were going live because of Twitter. Somehow my bell for your channel got changed back to recommend. Yeah, YouTube is trying to transition everyone off of the old dashboard to the new dashboard. And in that transition, it's screwing up notifications and everything. They've been trying to make this transition for years, by the way, but it seems like in 2020, they're actually going to force the transition. They've been waiting to build all the tools out. One of the tools they didn't have built at all was live streaming. And now I'm literally using the new live streaming the new live streaming platform they have right now. So once that's done, they pretty much have everything over save cards at the end of videos. They don't have that in the new system yet, but I think they think that'll be an easy conversion. So sometime in 2020, we won't have the old dashboard anymore. So I think there's just some wonkiness going on with the notifications and the bell. Let's see here. What's up, Koopa Troopa? Welcome, man. They just rush past so many awards without having anyone come up on stage to accept the award. Why does Doug Bowser come on stage to accept the award for fighting game but not family game? Yeah, that's always been my criticism about the Game Awards is some of the awards feel like they're not given the proper attention they deserve. I mentioned that really early in the stream that I do have an issue with that. And some that are just mentioned offhand as, oh, this game also won this award. But it's like, okay, but who else was nominated for that award? You know, it's almost like they expect us to put more time in voting for each individual award than actually, you know, talking about the awards. But it's gotten better. It's a lot better today than it was, 4 years ago. So I'm hopeful that like 10 years from now, it'll finally be. I mean, one of the issues, there's so many awards, but that's true at all these award shows. So, and they're just adding more awards, not really getting rid of any. So I think there's a lot that needs to still be refined, but it's getting better every year. And it's definitely the best the Game Awards has ever been. Not just this show, but just any Game Awards that has like a public TV presence. So, let's see here. PlayStation 5 is rumored to be fully backwards compatible. That's what I've heard as well. But again, we'll see. Not every game. We'll see. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens by the time the Xbox Series X comes out. We'll see. It's still a long ways out. Let's see here. There's actually. Oh, you guys are talking to each other. Switch 2 needs to be backwards compatible with current gen. I hope so. Who gonna beat them Bucks? Trick question. Nobody. Bucks will lose eventually. They kind of got lucky. I think they play the Mavs tonight, or is it tomorrow night? One of the two. And they got lucky because Luka got hurt. It's kind of weird because every time the Bucks have like a decent team coming up, someone gets hurt. It's almost like teams should just take Bucks off. Like Lakers fans, be worried that LeBron's going to get hurt in the game before the Bucks game because everyone seems to get hurt in the game before the Bucks game. So the Bucks are probably going to dominate the Mavericks, but Lakers could obviously drop an L on the Bucks. I mean, their top two players are better overall than the Bucks' top two players, but I think the Bucks have a better team than the rest of the Lakers team, and the Bucks are at home. So the Bucks could throttle the Lakers like they did to the Clippers. The Clippers had their two guys out there that, in theory, should be better than the Bucks' two guys, and the Bucks destroyed the Clippers. So the Bucks could very well destroy the Lakers too. And then if that happens, you really have to start wondering, when are the Bucks going to lose? The only team that that I fear in the East is because I think that loss to Boston was more of an early season flub, because all 3 losses for the Bucks came really early in the season. So I think that was more of an early season. Bucks still figuring things out now with the new roster and the rotations. I think the Bucks, if they beat the Lakers, I don't know when they lose again. I guess next time they play Miami. I think Miami's the team I'm worried about the most. They beat the Bucks. It was in overtime, but they beat the Bucks without Jimmy Butler, and Miami looks even better with Jimmy Butler. So I do worry about Miami maybe being a kryptonite for the Bucks that hopefully they don't have to see in the postseason, but you never know. And if they do, they do. They got to beat them. Some people will be like, "Oh, you're dismissing the 76ers." The Bucks have traditionally dominated the 76ers the last few years, so I'm not really worried about Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons and Tobias Harris. I'm just not. I'll take Giannis, Middleton, and throw any other Bucks player on. You want to put Brook Lopez? I'll take that over their trio. So, I'm not really worried about the 76ers as much. They're just not as good as the media makes them out to be. Let's just put it that way. Tobias Harris is actually a net negative rating every time he's on the court. So, but what do I know? Obviously, I have some bias towards Bucks. So, what are you guessing for Wii U ports of 2020 surprise game from Nintendo? Well, Wii U ports, we obviously know we're getting the Tokyo Mirage Sessions, definitive edition. We're getting that in January, I believe. Beyond that, I think obviously if we're not going to get a new mainline Mario game next year, then it makes sense to port over to 3D World from Wii U. I think that makes a lot of sense. Obviously, Pikmin 3, you figure, has got to slot in eventually somewhere. I don't know when. I wonder if they're avoiding Pikmin 3 to avoid questions about Pikmin 4. So maybe they don't want to mention Pikmin 3 until they know they have something to talk about with Pikmin 4, or want to talk about Pikmin 4, or want to acknowledge Pikmin 4. But those are kind of like the 2 big candidates. Obviously, the Wonderful 101 has been in the news recently because the co-founder of Platinum is really proud of that game. And they've talked in the past about how it's up to Nintendo if Wonderful 101 can come over. So yeah, I mean, there's still plenty of Wii U ports to go. That's just 3 off the top of my head, but I'm sure if I dive deeper in the library, I'll find others that deserve to come over. So, I think those are all candidates for next year at some point. 3D World obviously being the one that would do the best, I think, out of all of them sales-wise. As for surprise games, we'll see. I mean, it's possible Nintendo already unveiled all the games that are going to be there next year, and we just don't know their next year games. So I don't know. We'll see. There's probably something surprising at some point. Mario Kart 9, maybe. Just something that you can, with the success of Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, you could see how a Mario Kart 9 wouldn't even happen this generation. So it might be a little surprising to see them announce one, even though it would technically be the first new Mario Kart for this gen. But you could say, oh, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is so successful, they don't want to launch a Mario Kart 9 this gen. So that to me would be a little bit surprising, since Mario Kart 8 Deluxe still is selling. But we'll see. I'm honestly, nothing really surprises me anymore because Switch is getting everything. We're going to see more 3DS franchises coming over as well. So, Mezcal says, we all agree the Switch will take first place, but who takes second between next-gen Xbox and PlayStation 5 and why? I feel Xbox has a better chance specifically because of 15-plus exclusive games. First off, I don't agree that Switch will necessarily be in first place. Now, if you consider Switch part of the next generation, I know it's kind of a between-generation system, but whatever, count it with that because Wii U was part of the last generation or the current generation. Fine, I get that. I don't know the Switch is going to be in first place. Every single PlayStation beyond PlayStation 3 has sold over 100 million units. We don't know the Switch is going to do that. I predict the Switch will sell over 100 million and outsell the Wii, but let's say it does that, but it only sells 102 million. Do I really believe PlayStation 5 can't break 102 million? When every PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2, and PlayStation 4, all of them but one, broke that sales barrier that I'm talking about Switch touching. I can't just say definitively Switch is going to be number one. It's going to have a huge lead to start, but it doesn't mean that it's going to keep it. So I'm not, I don't care necessarily, but I'm not going to sit there and just pretend that Sony doesn't consistently sell a crap load of systems. It's going to outsell Xbox because Xbox has no traction in Asian markets. and Nintendo obviously does. So it'll never outsell Nintendo per se. I don't think an Xbox system could ever outsell a Nintendo platform unless Nintendo is really on the downturn like Wii U. But I think it's always going to be battle between Sony and Nintendo for first, and Sony is typically going to almost always take first. And Xbox will always take last. But just because Xbox takes last and third place doesn't mean it's not successful, because they're more of a Western market system, and if they dominate the Western market, that's a success for them, like they did with the Xbox 360. So, but I'm not ready to just hand switch the number one sales spot for the whole gen. You're starting to project 6 years out from now, and the Switch will be replaced with something else. So, yeah, I'm not gonna sit there and just hand the crown to Nintendo, even though they have obviously a head start. Let's see here. I drop out for a couple minutes and we start talking about how bad the Bucks are. Sure. Hey, I got to give it to the Raptors, man. Although, are they... Hey, tell me seriously, Corey. This is just an honest question, because I've seen some reports. Is there any truth to the reports that Toronto is trying to trade Kyle Lowry? I'm not saying I want him on the Bucks. I'm just saying, is there any truth to that? To the rumors out there that they're shopping him? Because, Toronto's still really good. Maybe they think they can't make a serious playoff run. I don't know, but they're still really good. And they're still, towards the top of the East. So I don't know. It seems a little weird to me that they would consider trading one of their best players, which is kind of like waving a flag on the season and trying to stack assets. But I don't know. You let me know. I don't follow the Toronto Raptors enough to know if there's any truth to those rumors. Metroid Prime Trilogy is still rumored. Yep, I think they don't want to announce that until Metroid Prime 4 gets unveiled, whenever it gets unveiled. Let's see here. They should have scaled down the ads. They showed over and over again, like for Stadia, to have enough time for all the awards. There's enough time for the awards even with the ads. The problem is you got to cut back on the world premieres. And Jeff Keighley knows. He's a smart man. He knows a large chunk of their record-breaking audience every year is there for those reveals. If he cuts back on the reveals, it could cut back on audience interest. So the ads pay for the show. The reveals drive the hype. The awards do kind of feel like on the back burner at an awards show, and I understand that, but it feels that way at other award shows too, so it's not really any different. It's just video game. There's just so much hype around trailers and announcements. Everyone's talking Xbox Series X, and hardly anyone's talking about the fact that Sekiro won Game of the Year. There's Sekiro won Game of the Year. That's it. Billion articles on Xbox Series X. That's just how the industry works. So I don't know. There's many ways. I even talked about how they could take half the awards and do it and announce them the day before in their own make individual videos showcasing it all and announcing the winner for half the awards that people might not care. Do something different for esports, because esports is this different segment of the award show. So do something different with the esports. Give them their own doing something different and giving them their own highlighted thing the day before is much better than just rushing awards out and just rapidly mentioning them in the pre-show or something. And that would free up more time as well to focus on the bigger awards that people care a lot more about. So I don't know. And again, I'm not trying to diminish esports or anything. It's just, I think even esports fans would be thrilled to have their own individualized videos celebrating esports and celebrating that particular award. Let's see here. I think there'll be an early 2020 Nintendo Direct. There's almost always is, so I'm sure there will be. Let me see here. I fell for that tweet. Will we ever have a console sell 200 million? Probably not. Not my lifetime. Shouldn't say that. The world's population keeps growing and growing and growing, not shrinking. So, sure, it could happen someday. It's just probably not going to happen during my lifetime. Let's see here. Just wake up? Nope. Been up for a few hours. But it was kids go to work, came on here to do some work, realized I'm not really going to make a video today, so I decided to stream. Well, yeah, obviously Microsoft cares more about who's sub to gold and Game Pass and blah blah blah. Let's see here. With all the foldable screen tech, maybe Switch 3 will fold in half. Never know. Some dude retweeted a 2015 tweet about Smash. Yeah, I saw you got fooled by that. I'm like, God, that happens every year. Not up on those trade rumors, but followed enough sports to know when there are trade rumors, there is some shade of truth. Yeah, I mean, usually when the rumors are out there, there is like a, it doesn't mean it's going to happen, but it's kind of like one of those they're listening to offers kind of thing. Like, oh yeah, some GM somewhere called and the Raptors were maybe like willing to listen kind of thing. Like, okay, yeah, you offered something right. Like, we'll move the guy, but I don't know if anyone's going to offer what's right to get Kyle Lowry, but you never know. I know there's some Bucks fans that thinks he should come to Milwaukee, but I don't know. I like Eric Bledsoe, so I'm a little biased towards the Bucks, so it's a little hard for me to see like an enemy that helped eliminate us from the playoffs come over and help us. Like, I don't know. And the thing is, I don't have anything against Kyle Lowry. I don't think he's a bad guy or anything. So, what comes out first and last? Pikmin 4, Metro Prime 4, Paper Mario. I don't even know if they're ever going to release Pikmin 4, so I'm just going to go Pikmin 4. I think Paper Mario will come by the end of the gen. Metro Prime 4 will come eventually. I don't know that Pikmin 4 is ever going to come, so I'll say Pikmin 4. Let's see here. There's always a war on Twitter over the Game Awards. That's nothing new. It's just like there's a war about E3. Well, if Death Stranding would have won Game of the Year, it would have been talked about more, but that's because people would have felt it was a controversial win. Surprisingly, my fear about the Death Stranding and its number of nominations and all that never really came to fruition. So I got to give Jeff Keighley and really the people who voted on winners a little bit of credit that it ended up being like surprising, because Death Stranding could have ran away with 8 awards, including Game of the Year, and it didn't. So that actually, to me, helped legitimize future Game Award shows where we don't need to worry about who Jeff Keighley's buddy with and what games are being advertised at the show, because it's not going to influence the results. I do think that obviously the people on the panel need to play a wider variety of games that nominate the games. The fact that Fire Emblem Three Houses is one of the top 3 rated games to release this year and wasn't in the Game of the Year vote when it won the fan vote, for crying out loud. That should show you that clearly the people who vote in what's going to be in each category need to play a wider variety of content. Or you need to have, if not those people, then you need to add more people into the process that play other video games. You need to have a wide variety of people that vote those games in, that play games and have different interests and stuff like that. You don't want to exclude games from certain genres because they're just, or from some platforms because they don't play a lot of Switch games or something. But that's about voting the games in. I think once the games were voted in, I think what happened with the voting process turned out just fine. I don't have an issue with any of the games that won any of the awards they won. I think every game that won an award deserved it. And some of them I think really was the best choice. So I don't have much argument with who won, but there's always an argument with the process that some of the games got in. And then when you see Fire Emblem, one of the top rated games, only get nominated for a single award, it's kind of like, I mean, okay, fine, a single award if it's Game of the Year. I mean, I guess you'd have to be, RPG strategy game and then Game of the Year, but still. Anyways. The advertisements definitely pay to be part of the show. The ads are how the show is paid for. The show costs multiple millions of dollars to host and run. And Jeff Keighley originally paid that all out of pocket, out of his bank account. He literally every penny in his bank account went for the first show. And if it didn't work out, he was going to be in some trouble. But then he, now these companies paying ad rights and everything, that's how the show is paid for. So the ads are necessary for the show to be what it is. And I don't mind the length of the show. Some people hate that it's like 3.5 hours. That doesn't bother me. All award shows are stupidly long. It's whatever. It's one night per year. I can give 3.5 hours to watch some video game stuff for that. Cool. I could literally play games on my Switch while watching it. I didn't this year because of Eric being in the hospital, but like I could literally like play games on my Switch and watch the Game Awards. Cool. I like it. I like having a big celebration of gaming like that. If I had my way, it'd be happening every night. No, it couldn't happen every night. That would be impossible. But I like having stuff like that. I think that's why I like watching live streamers sometimes. I kind of put them on in the background while I'm playing games on Switch. Also, CB streaming. Yeah, the stream's going to be done soon. I'm just going through for the last of the questions here. Corey Baum says, their backstage issue with a player and the team needs to deal with it. Are you one player getting involved with another player? Yeah, let's not get into that. Sebastian Cross, there were only 3 world premieres worth mentioning at the show. No More Heroes 3, Bravely Default 2, and Xbox Series X. You can't ignore Hellblade. Just look at how many views that trailer has. You can't ignore that Hellblade 2 was a major. I know some people lump that in with the Xbox Series X, but it technically was a separate premiere. Because the Xbox Series X, then you had someone on stage, then they premiered that. So it's technically a separate premiere. But I mean, if you only like, here's the thing: Ghost of Tsushima had another trailer. Like that's a big deal to people. That has a release date now, like a release time anyways. Like that was a big deal for PlayStation fans. So I don't think you can sit there and just those are the only ones that matter to you. But there are plenty of other world premieres that matter to other people. That's the beauty of gaming, though. There's such a wide variety of tastes. Like that's what mattered to you, but none of that might matter to somebody else. So that I love that about gaming, and I think that's also why the Game Awards is never going to fully satisfy any one individual person. If we had it our way, all the world premieres would just be Nintendo games. But like, you're never going to appeal to everyone. But I think it does a good job appealing to a broad spectrum of gamers. I think that's something the Game Awards has always done well with. With their reveals, they have a nice mix of indie and AAA and first party and third party. And I think they do a very good job trying to bring all gamers together, which is really hard to do effectively. Yes, you're always going to have people leave disappointed. Those same people you're probably going to show up and watch again next year because you just never know what's going to happen. That's the beauty of the Game Awards with their world premieres. You don't know what's going to happen. Nobody knew that the next Xbox was being shown off. That it didn't even leak. There wasn't even a leak that the next like Jeff Keighley is better at holding down leaks than the ESA is with E3. Like think about that. Jeff Keighley, this man, this myth, this legend, the Dorito Pope, is better at preventing leaks than the entire E3 organization. The ESA runs the ESRB. Like, one man is better at holding down leaks than that. Like that's. There's no way in hell Xbox Series X would not have been leaked at any other event, but it wasn't leaked for this one. Nobody saw it coming. Crazy. Caught everyone off guard. I mean, you gotta give Jeff Keighley credit for like, dude, he keeps this stuff on lockdown. This stuff does not get out. You never know what's coming. That's what part of the excitement of the Game Awards is. Unless it's announced ahead of time, you never know what's coming at the Game Awards. You could get a Breath of the Wild 2 gameplay trailer, or you can get a reveal of Bravely Default 2. You don't know what's going to happen. You just don't know. And I love that about the Game Awards, and I think that's why people are going to keep showing up every year. There's so much excitement around it because Jeff Keighley is so good at just, hey, like he's working for a year. Like right now, he's already working on the games that are going to be shown at the next Game Awards. He's working on it for a year, and nobody finds out anything. It never gets leaked out. That's awesome. You got to give even if you hate the show, you got to give the man respect for, dude. No wonder he's got so much respect in this industry. Nobody else can seem to keep it on lockdown but him. Let's see here. Ninja was trying to work on something, but they took too long to agree. That happens. There needs to be a top sales award for the Game Awards. Yeah, top sales award, but it's not really a voted on category. It's just like a list. That would just be like having a top list, you know? Not really celebrating much. It's just, this game sold the most. But the only people that should care about what game sold the most are the companies making the money off the sales of the game. I know we talk about game sales a lot, but ultimately, you were talking about companies making a bunch of money off a game. Like, it doesn't benefit us, usually. All we care, what benefits us as gamers is when a game sells enough to get another one. But, like, whether, Grand Theft Auto sells 100 million units or 50 million units, you're gonna get another GTA. So why does it matter to us as gamers if it, does crazy numbers, like craziest numbers? Like, why does it matter? It really doesn't, except to Rockstar and 2K that are just banking big money. All right, I think that's gonna do it. Yeah, think that's gonna do it. All right. Thank you guys for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed the stream. It will be live after the fact whenever YouTube's done doing its thing with it. Thank you so much to the 8th Arc for your $5 Australian super chat earlier today. I appreciate it. Again, I'm not going to have any other video, I think, coming out today. I got to go be with Eric at the hospital, and then obviously take care of my kids and spend some time with the fiance. And then we'll see. Hopefully I'll have a fresh video for you guys tomorrow. I apologize for not having Prime News yesterday, just with everything going on with Eric and stuff. And my daughter had her birthday this weekend as well. Things just weren't really lining up. And then I had my software issues the week before. So again, it's been a crappy end of 2019 when I wanted it to be a strong boost into 2020. Whatever, 2020 can't get here soon enough. Hopefully everyone's in good health, myself included, you guys as well. And we have the best year ever at this channel. Lots of big plans. I'll get into that when we get closer to the new year. But yeah, stay tuned. Catch you guys in the next video.